Humanity can harness their emotions by learning self-regulation, secure attachment, gaining it, and healing, resolving trauma. Now, also to note, there is a difference between PTSD and moral injury. So resolving any form of trauma or traumatic event is a processing of the emotional situation, and the nervous system is connected to this. So the person who lives the experience can know if there's a need to get that additional support. However, a lot of people of the day-to-day don't really tune into good psychoeducation. They tune into people who talk to them about, for example, self-regulation, but with the enemy of a narcissist. And I say the enemy because these individuals are psych educators, they're therapists, and yet apparently they forget that the same individual in the group that they're talking about also has unresolved trauma. And so to create a divide and to create a good and bad when trauma is trauma kind of seems ignorant, not to mention with a agenda that is focused on one group than another group, and treating these situations as if there's superiority or inferiority. So we have an unhealthy worth situation going on, or really what it is, it's a subjective experience and subjective focus of the professional behind the scenes who obviously doesn't know how to harness their own emotions regarding the topic of a person with a narcissist or a narcissist with a person. Because if you're able to be a grown-up, that's the point with your 2-year-old, and you're able to disengage as a professional in any field from preferences. Because see, preference is something we talk about all the time, don't we? How many people talk about sibling rivalry, which, by the way, you have to be an insecure person to have sibling rivalry. And that would mean that you and I are what? Humans. We have a societal system. Your societal system, and it's a network, can synchronize emotionally with your peers. Some of us, we don't synchronize with our peers because we are differentiated selves, the 3-year-old whole heart. And that's the group of people who either did not succumb to the shame posture in their body, and luckily for them, they got to learn self-agency and healthy self-worth. So no, there's no preferences, even with topics, which means we don't have the karma stuff, the likes or dislikes. We have the dharma stuff. So we have likes and dislikes. They're right here. So here's where my preference, humanity. They have emotions. They don't know how to harness them. That doesn't make humanity crappy, or doesn't make the conspiracy theories true about, oh, they're trying to replace human beings with artificial intelligence, machines, chips, and other things because they think that humans are not good to rule because of their emotions. So I was hearing some influencer, big name, I won't mention the name because it's unnecessary. And as they spoke, though, I realized why 4D talks about AI as Satan or the demon, who are basically in this way of creating a monster. And I'm like, okay, so the equation is clear. And as this person talked about how this criticism of human beings and emotions, I'm like, well, 2-year-olds don't know how to rule. That's why we got all the stuff we got going on, because we got a bunch of people like the professionals who are picking sides when trauma is trauma. But apparently they like to voice out one group against another group, or maybe not like, but they seem to be oblivious to the way that they're using the information. Because see, if you have compassion, which is the Enlightenment Soul Age group, I should add that one, in order for you to achieve integration of the brain, restore the embodied self, and move into your optimized human being 101, it means self-regulation again, secure attachment, differentiation of the self, self-agency, knowing that, of course, there's bonding and certainty, and so we are a group. However, we're not in the past, so we don't need a silverback, the ones who are functional adults, which is why it doesn't matter what subject matter expertise you may be, however many titles you may have, you are just as equal as anybody else. The difference is if you're tainting it with your personal opinion and preference, I'm going to notice it. I'm going to say, I know my personal preference, humanity, infinite higher human consciousness potential, 3-year-olds, they all can have a whole heart And you can better bet that the ones that don't have one are not evil or devil. No, so sorry that plane only exists in the mind's eye of people that will turn their back around from what they believed in, whether it be God or whether it be in their lovely magical powers with clairs, because they didn't get in life what they wanted. They were thrown a curveball. They got thrown a big curveball. You know what happens when you get thrown a curveball? Any of my mystics out there, 5D, I'm sure you know. It's an opportunity to catch it. And no matter how hard that catching it hurt, you're like, wow, it's not something that actually killed me physically. It's something that is unknown, unexpected, unwanted potentially. And I'm dealing with it how? From here. With my emotions. Now, here's the thing though, if you don't have secure attachment, and that's where attachment wounds are, and if you have not resolved trauma, or if you, let's just say, have trauma and you don't know about it, and you have the shame stuff, you're going to feel helpless. In fact, the whole way this person is talking about emotions and humanity and the way society presents it is that we are helpless and that we don't have access to the divinity. So this word always gets me, because I did get taught about God as I grew up, and there's no way in hell that I would ever compare myself or any of people to these words in the way that some people talk about from the 4D spectrum. It's dehumanizing. It's also a concept that means you, one, believe in supernatural, and that trumps the scientific methodology, and you staying grounded on earth, which means subjective experience here. When I was presented at a young age by one of my teenage boyfriends that I didn't believe because I had faith. They said, you believe because you're afraid of death. You don't want to die, or you're afraid of death. And I was really upset. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? How dare you question what is my faith and present it in a way as if you're so sure when you're not in my body, you're not in my brain. And that was the one day I learned, okay, this is the person that I'm with on purpose. And they are choosing to insist that they know me better than I know me. And they're making a very, very distinctive statement. And that day I just knew you can't prove what's in here. But I also knew that everyone has an opinion. His opinion doesn't matter to what my faith is. I don't need to prove anything. So here's where functional adult, and I was a teenager, stands. In the sense of, I'm not offended. I can be pissed. I can not appreciate. I can a lot of things. But I'm not going to make it a statement that is true and that I'm going to come fight you about. So the adaptive children, emotionally speaking, instead, we have all those groups with their silverbacks, and they get into a specific way of making statements because they don't know how to harness their nervous system, and they don't know how to harness, therefore, their 3-year-old or their 2-year-old for that matter. When we have subject matter experts who are creating groups, that doesn't help anyone either. They can teach about self-regulation, but they could teach it with a little bit more compassion and understanding towards all of those who don't know how to self-regulate. So if you're telling me one group is dysregulated and you're going to teach me how to self-regulate, the fact that one is dysregulated equals they don't know how to self-regulate. So how about we teach them and support them? How about we come together and have a collaborative effort? But at the end of the day, for humanity to care about becoming mature with their emotions, with their 3-year-old, they need to understand that it's connected to the embodied brain. And 4D plane talks about stories and conspiracies, and 3D too, and the ancient texts. This is why they don't accept compassion-based therapy. They don't accept anything that is new within the neuroscience, the mental health community, all of it, because the sciences apparently are the monsters now. They have done something extreme. Balance and equanimity is what wisdom is. You take all the subject matters and you bring them together. So as long as a person is not their own adults, 3-year-old, 2-year-old, don't matter, self, your differentiated self. This is the minute that you don't need somebody to say discernment. You're like, yeah, what are you talking to me about today? Oh, I'm going to go talk about this. The emotional part, though, humanity doesn't know how to regulate their nervous system. I see a bunch of teenagers misaligned, to say the least, with drugs, sex, food, alcohol, procrastination, video games. I mean, these aren't teenagers. No, the teenagers are doing their thing. I'm calling teenagers adults that to this day live half a life because they didn't learn how to resolve their trauma. They don't believe they have any of it or attachment wounds. And yet they talk about life and they turn and say, you know what? God doesn't exist. Evil exists because of this. And it's like, not really, but keep on doing whatever it is. So tune in for more.